All right, so picture this. You just survived the biggest war in human history. 10 straight years of blood, chaos, fire, and death. Your enemies are finally defeated, your soldiers are exhausted, and all you want to do is go home, hug your wife, see your son again, maybe sleep for like a week straight and never touch a sword again. That's where the Odyssey begins. Our main character, Odysseus, is basically the greatest war hero of Greece after the Trojan War ends. Everybody respects him because he's not just strong, he's smart. This is the guy who helped win the war using the Trojan horse trick, which honestly is still one of the craziest tactical plays in history. But here's the problem. Odysseus is also arrogant sometimes. And in Greek mythology, arrogance plus angry gods equals absolute disaster. So Odysseus gathers his men, loads up the ships, and finally begins the journey home to Ithaca. At first, everybody's excited. The war is over. They survived. They think the hard part is done. Yeah, absolutely not. Because almost immediately things start going wrong. Massive storms hit the ocean, ships get separated, supplies disappear, and the crew slowly realizes something terrifying. The gods are against them. Specifically Poseidon, god of the sea. And trust me, if you're sailing across an ocean, Poseidon is literally the last guy you want to have beef with. But Odysseus doesn't fully understand how bad the curse is yet. Then, one day, they land on a strange island full of giant caves, animals, and food. Everything looks abandoned, and honestly, this is the first moment where every horror movie fan watching would immediately scream, "Bro, leave right now." But no. The soldiers decide to stay, eat, and explore the cave like nothing bad has ever happened in human history. And then, the owner comes home. The Cyclops. A giant one-eyed monster the size of a building. And this dude is terrifying. He walks into the cave carrying massive sheep like grocery bags, sees Odysseus and his men hiding inside, and casually starts eating them alive. No dramatic speech, no warning. Just straight up grabbing people like chicken wings. And honestly, this is where the movie would probably shock audiences immediately because everything goes from adventure to nightmare in like 30 seconds. The Cyclops seals the cave shut with a giant boulder, and now everybody's trapped. Panic spreads everywhere. Some soldiers want to fight, others are crying. Everybody thinks they're dead. But Odysseus realizes something important. They can't overpower this thing physically. So instead, he comes up with one of the smartest plans ever. First, he offers the Cyclops wine. The monster drinks it, gets completely drunk, and starts laughing. Then the Cyclops asks Odysseus his name, and Odysseus says, "Nobody," which sounds random at first, but becomes genius later. That night, while the Cyclops passes out drunk, Odysseus and his men sharpen a giant wooden stake, heat it in fire, and stab the Cyclops directly in the eye. The monster wakes up screaming in pain so loudly that other Cyclopes outside hear him and yell, "Who attacked you?" And the Cyclops screams back, "Nobody!" So the others basically go, "Then why are you yelling, dude?" and leave. Honestly, even after thousands of years, that's still hilarious. Then Odysseus and his men escape by hiding underneath sheep as they walk out of the cave. Finally, they survive. But right when everything seems okay, Odysseus ruins it. Instead of quietly escaping, he starts bragging. He yells his real name at the Cyclops because he wants credit for defeating him, which is basically the ancient Greek version of posting your location online after robbing a mafia boss. Turns out the Cyclops is Poseidon's son. Yeah, huge mistake. Poseidon becomes absolutely furious and personally curses Odysseus' journey forever. From this moment on, the ocean itself becomes his enemy. Storms destroy ships, giant waves throw men into darkness, entire crews vanish, and every island they visit somehow becomes worse than the last. At one point they meet the Lotus Eaters, people living on an island with magical fruit that makes anyone who eats it completely forget their home and family. Some of Odysseus's men eat the fruit and suddenly stop caring about leaving forever. They literally sit there smiling like their brains got factory reset. Odysseus has to physically drag them back onto the ships before the entire crew loses themselves. Then they encounter Circe, a mysterious witch living on another island. And this woman is terrifying because she literally transforms Odysseus's men into pigs. Imagine surviving war, monsters, and shipwrecks just to wake up as bacon. Somehow, Odysseus resists her magic with help from the gods, and instead of killing him, Circe actually falls in love with him and helps him. But then the story gets darker. Circe tells Odysseus the only way home is through the underworld itself. Yeah, the land of the dead. So Odysseus sails into complete darkness, surrounded by dead souls, ghosts of fallen warriors, and terrifying prophecies about his future. And honestly, this part of the story is where everything becomes deeper emotionally. Because the Odyssey isn't really about monsters, it's about trauma. Odysseus starts realizing the war never actually ended for him mentally. Everywhere he goes, he carries guilt, pain, fear, and memories of everyone he failed to save. And if Christopher Nolan directs this movie the way people expect, these underworld scenes could become absolutely mind-blowing visually. Imagine giant dark oceans, ghostly armies, haunting music, and Odysseus slowly losing pieces of himself emotionally. After escaping the underworld, things somehow get even worse. They encounter the sirens, creatures whose voices are so beautiful they hypnotize sailors into steering ships directly into death. Now Odysseus, being curious and slightly insane, wants to hear the song without dying. So he orders his men to tie him tightly to the mast of the ship while everybody else blocks their ears with wax. And when the sirens begin singing, Odysseus completely loses control. He starts screaming, begging to be untied, promising anything just to reach them. He looks completely broken mentally while his crew ignores him and keeps rowing. And honestly, in a movie theater with IMAX sound, that scene alone could be terrifying. Then comes one of the most stressful moments in the entire story, Scylla and Charybdis. Odysseus reaches a narrow path between two impossible horrors. On one side is Charybdis, a giant whirlpool capable of swallowing entire ships whole. On the other side is Scylla, a horrifying sea monster with multiple heads waiting to snatch sailors one by one. And Odysseus realizes there's no perfect solution. Somebody will die no matter what he chooses. And that's really the heart of the Odyssey. Leadership isn't always heroic speeches and victories. Sometimes it's choosing which tragedy you can survive. So Odysseus sails closer to Scylla to avoid losing the entire ship, knowing some of his men will still be killed. And the scene is brutal. Soldiers screaming, giant monster heads attacking from the cliffs, people being dragged into darkness, pure chaos. By now, Odysseus has lost almost everything. Most of his friends are dead. His ships are gone. His crew is broken. Eventually, after years of suffering, he becomes completely alone, drifting across the ocean. And then finally, after 10 years, he reaches home. But honestly, the saddest part is realizing home moved on without him. Everybody believes Odysseus died years ago. His kingdom is full of arrogant rich men trying to marry his wife Penelope and steal his throne. They eat his food, disrespect his family, and bully his son Telemachus inside his own palace. So Odysseus disguises himself as an old beggar and secretly walks through his kingdom watching what happened while he was gone. And these scenes are honestly emotional because after all the monsters and battles, the real pain comes from realizing time changed everything. But Penelope never stopped believing he would return, even after 10 years, even after everybody else gave up. And finally comes the ending. Odysseus reveals who he truly is. The broken soldier who survived gods, monsters, storms, and death itself finally unleashes absolute fury on the men who stole his life away. The final battle is brutal, emotional, and honestly satisfying because this isn't just revenge anymore. It's the end of a nightmare. And before we finish, if you're enjoying this story and want more movie breakdowns like this, hit that like button and subscribe because we've got way more legendary stories coming.